It's very important we acknowledge and pay our respects to the First Peoples of this country, because it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. That said, we are all connected to country, and we all have a responsibility to look after it, not only for ourselves, but for those who have not yet come. We live in unprecedented times, dealing with crisis after crisis. It's never ending. We hope and dream of returning to a sense of normality and business as usual. Well, let me propose to you that that's never been the case. If you were to look at any one single point in the history of this planet or the story of humanity, what would you find? You would find change. The human experience is one of change. It's constant, it's deliberate, it's inevitable, it's devastating, consequential, personal, rewarding, and peaceful. It happened yesterday, it's happening now, and it will definitely be there tomorrow. Someone once famously said, "You cannot change anything until you accept it." You cannot change anything until you accept it. I agree with that, but I'd also like to add that if you do not accept or create change, change will create you. If you do not accept or create change, change will create you. Today, you're going to be hearing from a group of dedicated, passionate people who have accepted change. They are creating change and imagining a new reality built on collaboration and purpose to deliver impact for the greater good.
My name is Dermot O'Gorman. I'm the CEO of WWF Australia. Last month, we celebrated WWF's 60th anniversary globally. We had a celebration with more than 100 officers from around the world. I think the scary bit for me was that the science is telling us that we need to do more in this next decade than we have done in the last 60 years. Now, you can apply that to what WWF has done, but I think the same logic applies to us as a society. We need to find ways to go and scale faster because the rate of change that we need to do is so compelling. We need to innovate. We need to use cutting-edge science. We need to use cutting-edge social theories of change. But we need to couple that with the amazing opportunities that the digital disruption is presenting in all parts of the work that we do. We realise that climate must be at the heart of everything we do, and that interface between climate and biodiversity and people is at the heart of what Regenerate Australia is all about.
Cultural fire management entails burning practices developed by Aboriginal people to enhance the health of the land and its people. Cultural burning can include burning or indeed the prevention of burning off country for the health of particular plants and animals, threatened species, or more broadly biodiversity in general. It may involve patch burning to create different fire intervals across the landscape. It may also be used for fuel reduction, may be used for gaining better access to country to clean up important cultural pathways, maintaining cultural responsibilities, and as part of the cultural heritage management program. It is a ceremony to welcome people onto country. It could also be as simple as a campfire around which people gather to share, learn and celebrate. And I think that definition, as I said, provided by Fire Sticks Alliance really hits the spot.
The fire went through there in a matter of 3 hours. The fires in 2007 took 3 weeks to burn the same area and burnt a lot slower. These Dunarts that are nocturnal were underground. So they came out at night time to a moonscape, a smouldering moonscape. But the amazing thing is that we've now been surveying across this burnt area, and we've picked up dunarts in areas where we hadn't known that they were before, because the effort is so much larger now. So that's what gives us hope, that these little dasyurids have actually survived. While yes, we would have lost a lot, and we've lost a lot of our other threatened species, the dunart, being nocturnal, has utilised burrows that would have been there from other reptiles and other animals. And there are pockets of survivors, and that's where we've focused our energy right now, in protecting those pockets.
I think with anything that's quite systemic and structural, we're going to need all sectors playing a role in helping solve that challenge. And so, of course, the private sector is going to play a critical role alongside community and government. For us, it's also about working on using our unique data and knowledge and insights to help inform and play a role in helping governments and community be better aware of and understand where those risks might occur.
For us, we just want to keep doing what we're doing with reducing those threats and engaging and empowering the community and private landholders to look after their properties the best that they can. And partnering with our philanthropic donor organisations like WWF is crucial for us to be able to get the work done that we need to do, and to have those partnerships that provide us with the resources so that we can get out on the ground as soon as we need to when there is an emergency situation like the bushfires of 1920. So partnerships are really important and crucial. We can't do anything without them.
Businesses do have a critical role to play in addressing social and environmental issues. They're not an externality as business may have thought of them historically. They're very much an internality and a real cost, but also an opportunity. And so that's the thinking we use when we're trying to work on understanding our important role in helping respond to both climate change, but also our preparedness and adaptation to major natural peril and extreme weather events. And then the important and critical role that vegetation, and we think about the types of infrastructure that can help improve our community's resilience to these major extreme weather events, and vegetation and regeneration will play a critical role in that.
When we talk about collaborations, we are going to need collaborations at a size and scale that we haven't seen before, working with unlikely allies and organisations across all sectors of society that are values aligned and that recognise that we are not just going to be able to compartmentalise parts of the problem. We can't just tackle climate change on its own and ignore biodiversity loss. We can't just acknowledge and tackle species recovery without tackling climate change. We can't just work on landscapes and ignore our seascapes. And we most certainly can't ignore the way we produce our food, for example, because our food security and our food production contributes to so many of the threats and the issues that are driving many of the species losses that we see today.
Our goal is to plant 250,000 trees by the end of 2025. Imagine if there was 10, 20, 30 groups who are able to do the same sort of thing. Imagine how many trees we can get in the ground.
Tell us, why are corridors so important? Why do you focus attention on that?
Well, the corridors, because so much of the habitat here is fragmented. So, for example, here in Bangalow, a lot of the koalas and the koala habitat is actually right on the edge of residential areas. So what we're trying to do is connect these fragmented populations and habitat and get them to move away from residential areas, so away from cars and dogs and car strikes and stuff like that. And 18 months ago, right in the middle of the drought, we were planting up just near where I am here in Bangalow, and we actually had volunteers come and water from October through to February on that property and another property just to keep the trees alive. And I was astounded that these people would turn up every week and water these trees. And 18 months later, these trees are massive and they're getting used by koalas. So there were scats, there were scratchings, and even the top of one of the trees was broken, probably because some fat koala got up there a bit too soon. But it's working. So the koalas are using these corridors. They're getting out of the main part of towns, and they're connecting to other habitat. And it's just this growing thing that's going right across the landscape and across the northern rivers, and it just inspires me to keep going.
So I've been spending a lot of time out on the ground in our key investment region, which is the Northern Rivers, talking to the community, talking to koala ecologists, talking to government, talking to councils, and we've developed this sort of package of projects that we're supporting across 5 key pillars. And one of those, besides the habitat corridors and the wildlife care, is environmental stewardship. So very much about supporting landholders to go out there and restore and protect habitat, because as has already been mentioned today, over 60% of the habitat is on private land, and so that's where we really need to be working. And we've engaged Landcare to go out there and get behind the Land for Wildlife program. Just in the last couple of months, there's been 11 new landholders registered with the Land for Wildlife Network, and that's really providing a stepping stone for landholders to get engaged in koala habitat management, running workshops, those kind of things.
What are some other ideas that you have, or some innovations you'd like to see people trying?
Well, I think that what we've created here, Josh, has sort of captured the imagination, not just of Australia, but globally. And we're presently working on a mobile hospital for the state of Victoria, which will have a significant variation that is very innovative and requires some amazing new technology. I can't give too much away on that one. But we've also committed to a hospital in Tanzania, in Eastern Africa. We've had inquiry now from New Zealand and the United States of America. So I think as far as, the way forward, I think what we've sort of jagged onto here is something that has applications globally. And just having that mobility is such a big thing, because when wildlife are in serious crisis, early intervention is key. If wildlife are suffering for days, their likelihood of pulling through is greatly reduced. So the earlier we can get care to those animals, get veterinary treatment to them, get them into rehabilitation, the better the outcome for them.
Without trees, you could be rescuing and saving koalas all the time, but if there's no trees for them and no habitat for them, then they've really got no hope. And with us, if you can't save the koala, you can't save anything. So under what we're doing, it's not just about koalas either, because we're planting for the endangered glossy black cockatoo. We're also planting endangered plants. So we were doing that yesterday. So it's a whole, under the koala umbrella, you obviously get more funding, more, people get more involved. But we're trying to make ecosystems. We're trying to restore ecosystems. We're just trying to give all sorts of animals, birds, insects, whatever, a chance to survive. All that's stopping us from pretty much revegetating the entire Northern Rivers is money. We could be doing this forever. We've got the landholders, we've got community support, we've got community group support, we've got government, state, federal, local support. We've got the support. We just, we could literally keep planting until the cows come home.
We also need to acknowledge that when we're investing in communities that are critical for the koala, the people in those communities need to benefit as well, or it won't be sustainable. And so looking at what we're calling a koala economy, how can we create great koala walking trails, for example, that drive tourism into areas so that the local economies of regions that are really lifting their weight and doing their bit for koalas benefit as well. They're the types of initiatives that the Regenerate Australia movement is going to require if we're going to shift from cycles of loss to cycles of gain.
So it's engagement, it's education, it's just, you've got to involve and inspire people.